Hey guys, it's Drac, and after much exploring various targets, I finally found the Commander deck that I'm looking forward to. These Commander decks are a great value right now, obviously because they have True-Name Nemesis and Baleful Strix in them, but we'll get to that later. I'm going to talk about the deck as a Commander product and kind of review it and unbox it and tell you what I think of it. So this is the Grixis Mindseize Commander 2013 deck with 15 new Magic cards in it. On the back you can see some of the new generals and some of the new cards, including the very hyped, very popular True-Name Nemesis, and the non-foil version of Todd Lockwood's new Cruel Ultimatum art. So it tells us that Jaliva Nephalia Scourge sends her enemies fleeing in terror while co-opting their arsenals for herself, and that's basically explaining the headliner general, which steals instants and sorceries from your opponents by exiling their deck, so that she's kind of mill and kind of a control general. Plus she's a vampire, so you can kind of build around her in a Grixis vampire theme. Anyway, I'm going to start unpackaging the deck. So out of the box we have Jaliva herself, and then a Commander deck box in here. Now, there are a couple of things I want to talk about in terms of the box itself. First off, there are two extra oversized generals in here. Thraximunder is the big. Thraximunder and Nekusar are now fighting for kind of Grixis zombie general status, but they're both really cool and they both do really neat things. So those are the oversized cards. Here's the deck itself. Inside there's a pamphlet kind of explaining how to play Commander, and then it's got some history and backstory on Jaliva and Nekusar, which are both new cards, and then it has a complete deck list, which is pretty sweet. And then in here is your standard how to play Magic the Gathering kind of a guide, and if you're watching this video you probably know how to play Magic the Gathering. If not, I'm thinking of making a video kind of explaining that in the near future. So, I'm going to go through the deck now, and we will see kind of what's inside. I'm going to try and do it really quickly so that it's not super duper boring. One thing that I do want to mention is that the deck box will not hold an entire Commander deck once it's sleeved. The sleeve actually pushes it way too high. Commander deck that's been sleeved stands about that big, and so it'll never fit in here. But what people did figure out is that if you do sleeve this Commander deck, if you remove this, sleeve your deck, put it in here, and then slide it like this, or slide it like this, it will fit in its entirety. So the box is good for storing all of your cards. You just kind of have to know what you're doing with it. So to begin with, we have the General Jaliva. Augur of Bolas, which was originally printed in M13, is sweet. Fogbank is a good blocker. Nightscape Familiar just makes your deck a lot cheaper and is a good thing that you can play early as well as a decent blocker. Baleful Strix, he's a ton of legacy play. I play him in my legacy deck and he's awesome. The fact that he cycles himself and blocks anything is just killer. Nivik Skillmage is a sweet card that copies spells. Still feeling a little under the weather, sorry about that. Guard Gormazora is similar to a Fogbank, so the theme of this deck seems to be built around Jaliva in that it wants to steal spells, get value off of those spells, and not die in the meantime, so it has a lot of high efficiency blockers. Gutter Snipe gets extra value by pinging when you cast the spells. Echo Mage obviously lets you copy spells, sometimes multiple times depending upon how far you level them up. Jace's Archivist is just a windfall ability. True-Name Nemesis is currently worth about $40, and he's just really good. He's not as good in Commander, but in Legacy he's just been tearing it up. Vampire Nighthawk continues the theme of making excellent blockers. There's a Viceling, which I've never seen before. The beginning of each opponent's upkeep, Viceling deals... So it's kind of like the Vice cards. It just deals damage to them for keeping cards in their hands. Terror Ravager just does damage based on how many lands the opponent controls. So he starts off as a decent blocker, and then he gets to be a really good offensive attacker as the game goes on and people have like 13 lands in play. Diviner Spirit is weird. It's kind of an Ophidian effect, but it's an Ophidian effect that you share, so I don't like it that much. Mnemonic Wall is really good. It's been reprinted a couple of times at this point, and it just gets you more values out of your instants and sorceries. Hooded Horror is good for attacking people who have more creatures than you. Nekusar is the new general. He has the ability to kind of group hug everybody for drawing cards, but then when opponents do it, they lose life. So he's kind of good because he's like a friendly EDH general. He's not super broken. Charmbreaker Devils wants you to get your instants and sorceries back, which is awesome. Uyo I haven't seen before. but continues kind of the Moonfolk theme of returning lands to do things, and in this case, you're returning lands to copy spells. Thraxamundar, everybody knows. Baleful Force is just the traditional black, draw an extra card, lose a life, so that's pretty good, and he's got a relevant body in EDH. Soul Ring is sweet and worth money. Wayfarer's Bauble lets you search for lands, as does Armillary Sphere. Swiftfoot Boots just protects your general. I'm pulling things out that are worth money that I think are really cool. Obelisk of Grixis is a mana rock in Grixis. Temple Bell is a way to draw extra cards. It's pretty popular in EDH. Eye of Doom looks to be a way to make everybody choose one thing that gets destroyed. So that's kind of cool. Miaria just lets you copy more spells. There's a lot of spell copying because, again, like, these are the 3 generals that the deck is supposed to run around, and the one that it's currently built for is Jaliva. You kind of have to tweak it to make it run for Thraxamundar or Nekusar. Curse of Inertia makes it so that if you attack the person that you curse, you can kind of tinker, which is neat. Propaganda has new art by Clint Clearly, which is sweet, and again, kind of protects you. Curse of Shallow Graves makes people want to attack someone else because everybody likes putting zombies into play, and it also works well with your zombie theme if you go that route. Curse of Chaos is just sweet. It lets you loot, which is something that you want to do in these games. They go really long. Spiteful Visions is almost the exact same thing that Nekusar does, but in an enchantment form, so it's harder to remove. Arcane Melee is a bad card from the Innistrad block that makes your spells cheaper, but I guess it's okay in EDH, but it also makes your opponent's spells cheaper, so that's pretty rough. Price of Knowledge is a good way to close out the game, and it's also a way that you can make your hand size infinite so that you can draw a bunch of cards. This is just a good multiplayer, not threatening draw spell, Vision Skeins, and it might, I don't know, the art looks very new. It might be one of the new cards. I'm not sure about it. Soul Manipulation is just a sweet kind of Dimir style card. Counters creature spells and brings them back for you, so it's like a really effective counterspell, I feel. Croesus Charm is the original Grixis Charm, which is sweet. Grixis Charm is the Conflux Charm, which does a lot of useful things and is playable in Modern, I feel. I think it's really, really good. Sudden Spoiling has Split Second and is a really good way to, like, either save yourself from one turn, or like make sure that your board sweeps are effective, or just wreck combat. Dismiss is a sweet counterspell because it's a free counterspell. Illusionist Gambit is a new card that's really cool and does weird things in combat by switching up the combat step and making it so that you can't attack who you were attacking. Wild Ricochet is continuing the theme of copying things. Annihilate is just good old-fashioned black creature removal that cycles, which is important because, again, your spells costing more in EDH don't matter because the game goes longer. Opportunity is cheap card draw, and they didn't break the format by putting it into this deck. It didn't make anything super valuable less valuable. Slagstorm is good. Starstorm, is cycling, so it's good early game, and then it's really good ways to remove the board late game because you can just hit everything for a bunch of damage. Strategic Planning is a sweet draw spell. Infest is a legacy playable board sweeper. Tempt with Reflections is one of the new tempting offer cards. It lets everybody make copies, and then if they make copies, you can make more copies, which is sweet. Fissure Vent is just a way to destroy artifacts and lands. Incendiary Command we've seen before. Tysis was in Modern Masters, but it's a really good removal spell, and sometimes people slow down their game to play around it if you suspend it early enough. This is the Cruel Ultimatum with the Todd Lockwood art and non-foil that they printed in From the Vault 20, which is sweet. Decree of Pain is just a way to sweep the board, which is important in EDH because sometimes people with creature decks get out of hand. Army of the Damned is a way for you to play to your zombie theme and make a ton of zombies. Prosperity is a way to group hug everybody drawing cards, which is fine, and it, again, like, if you build around this guy, it'll do him a bunch of damage as well. Skyscribing uses the rather unpopular forecast mechanic, but it's pretty good. Molten Disaster is a way to destroy things, and if you kicker it, it has Split Second. And then the land base in these decks is actually really neat. You get a cryptic command in each one, which is awesome. Or, not a cryptic command. That's so bad. Sorry about that. You get a command tower, and they've made a new kind of command tower called Opal Palace, which does interesting things in the Commander format and taps for colorless as well. So it's not quite as good as Command Tower, but it's close. But they also give you just a really wide variety of dual lands that all have drawbacks. So that's like really awesome that Commander has figured out that they need to make sure that your mana works. So they're giving you a lot of the new guild gates, a lot of fetch lands. Grixis Panorama is a fetch land for Grixis. Is it Boiler Works and is it Guildgate? So they're doing a lot of the old Ravnica duels and then a lot of the new Ravnica duels and then some things that like make multiple kinds of mana. So Rupture Spire is a perfect mana, as is Command Tower and Opal Palace. Temple of the False Gods ramps you late game. And then like Urza's Factory being printed with this art from Mark Teeden is actually really cool. I haven't seen this art before and I think that it's sweet. It lets you have some play and make creatures late game after a board sweep, and then there are just a ton of really cool basics from recent Magic sets. So, that is my review of the Commander Mindseas deck, and I hope you enjoyed watching, and I may do more reviews as I find more Commander decks, but a lot of stores have been gouging people, and it's really tricky to pick these up at MSRP. So, as always, thanks for watching.